The storm and the child. The night was louder than thunder. The storm howled like a wild beast, tearing across the frozen land. The sky was black, broken only by flashes of white lightning. The ground shook under heavy winds, and snow fell like knives. It was the kind of storm that could break mountains, the kind that did not forgive weakness. In the middle of this merciless storm, a small figure struggled to walk. It was a child, not a human child, but something different. His skin glowed faintly, pale blue under the snow. His large eyes, once bright, were now dim with fear and exhaustion. Each breath turned into white mist, stolen quickly by the wind. The alien child had been running for hours, though he no longer knew where he was going. His village was gone, destroyed by the storm. His family. He did not want to think about them. He had only one thought left: survive. But the storm was stronger than him. The snow reached up to his knees, pulling him down with every step. His small hands shook as he tried to shield his face. The cold stabbed at his skin, sinking deeper into his tiny body. His heart raced, but his body slowed. He whispered something in his own language, a desperate prayer. But the storm did not listen. The storm only roared louder, as if laughing at his weakness. The child fell. Snow hit his face, sharp and bitter. He tried to rise, but his legs refused. His chest burned with pain, his throat dry. The storm pressed down on him like a giant hand, telling him to stop fighting, telling him to sleep. For a moment, he thought maybe it would not be so bad. To close his eyes, to let the storm carry him away. He was only a child. He was tired, so very tired that his vision blurred. The world turned white, endless white. But then, a shadow, something moved inside the storm, a dark shape cutting against the white curtain of snow. It was tall, broad, and moving straight toward him. Fear hit the child harder than the cold. His people told stories of monsters that lived in the storms, tall creatures with claws and teeth that hunted the weak. Was this one of them? The child tried to crawl away, but his arms gave up. His small body shook violently. He could not escape. He could not even scream. The shadow came closer. Step by step, heavy boots crushing the snow. And then, through the blur, the child saw it. Not a monster, not from his world. It was something even stranger. A human. The child had never seen one in real life, only heard whispers. Humans were the outsiders, the ones who lived far away, the ones who did not belong here. They were strong, dangerous, and cold. His people feared them, but this human was different. The figure wore heavy armor, frost clinging to the edges. A mask covered his face, glowing faintly in the dark. In his hands, he carried a strange device that shone with a warm red light. He knelt down beside the alien child, snow crunching under his weight. The child's eyes widened. He wanted to cry, to beg for mercy, but no sound came. His lips were frozen. The human did not speak. He only looked at the child for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached into his pack and pulled out a blanket, a thick glowing fabric that radiated heat. He wrapped it around the child's shaking body. Warmth, the child gasped. His skin burned as feeling returned. It was painful, but it was life. He stared at the human, confused. Why? Why was this strange being helping him? The human lifted him with careful strength. The child's head rested against the human's chest, hearing the steady heartbeat inside the armor. Safe, strong, but the storm did not care. It screamed around them, winds lashing, snow biting harder. The human looked up at the black sky, then back at the child. He tightened his grip, as if making a silent promise. The child's eyes fluttered shut. His last thought before darkness claimed him: monsters don't save children. So what is he? The storm raged on. But now, inside it, too, lives were bound together. One alien child, one human stranger, and a story that was only just beginning. Asterisk, the human stranger, the alien child woke to fire. Not the burning fire of destruction, but a smaller flame-controlled, alive, crackling inside a cave. The sound was soft compared to the storm outside. For a moment, he thought it was a dream dot. Then he saw the figure, the human. The stranger sat near the fire, face still hidden behind a dark mask. The armor was heavy, black and silver, scratched by years of battle. Steam rose from his shoulders as melting ice slid to the floor. The child's small body shook again, not from cold, but from fear. He pulled the glowing blanket tighter around himself and whispered in his own language, voice trembling, "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" The human turned his head. The mask's eyes glowed faintly, red against the shadows. The child's heart pounded like a drum. His people had always told him, humans were not saviors. They were conquerors. They came only for war, for resources, for power dot. So why was this one saving him? The human reached into his pack and pulled out a container. He opened it, releasing a warm smell that filled the cave. Food, strange, unfamiliar, but it made the child's stomach ache with sudden hunger. The human pushed the container forward slowly. The child hesitated. Could it be poisoned? Could it be a trap? But his body decided before his mind could. He grabbed it with shaking hands and ate. The taste was strange, bitter and salty, but it was food. It was life. The human said nothing. Only watched Dot's silence filled the cave, heavy and sharp. The child's eyes darted to the stranger's weapon, lying near the fire. A metal device unlike anything he had seen before. It looked deadly, powerful enough to end him with a single touch. He swallowed nervously. Finally, the human spoke. The voice came from the mask, rough and deep, broken by static. "You are safe." The child did not understand the words, but the tone was not cruel, not sharp. It was calm, almost gentle. Still fear remained. The child pointed at the storm outside and spoke in his language, trying to ask, "Where will you take me?" The human did not understand. He shook his head, then took a stick from the fire. Slowly, he began to draw in the snow on the cave floor. The child watched as strange symbols appeared. A circle for the cave, a jagged line for the storm. Then another symbol, a star above, and below it, two small figures. The child blinked. He understood. We wait here. Then we go together. The human wanted to protect him. Or, at least, that's what it seemed. But before the child could feel relief, a sound cut through the cave. A howl not from the storm. From something else the human froze. His hand moved slowly toward his weapon. The fire hissed as the wind carried the sound again closer this time. A deep, unnatural growl that made the child's blood run cold. The child whispered a single word, "Hunters." The human's head turned sharply. He could not understand the word, but he understood the fear in the child's eyes. Outside the cave, shadows moved. Not soldiers, not men, but creatures. Four-legged, fast, and hungry. Their eyes glowed in the dark, bright as fire. The storm had driven them from the mountains, and now they smelled food. The human stood slowly, weapon in hand. He moved in front of the child, placing himself between the danger and the boy. The child's heart raced. For the first time, his fear of the human was smaller than his fear of what was outside. He gripped the glowing blanket and whispered, praying. The creatures would pass, but they did not. The first hunter stepped into the cave's mouth, snarling, teeth like glass shards. Behind it, more shapes shifted in the snow, at least 5. Maybe more. The fire crackled weakly, as if it too was afraid. The human raised his weapon. The child covered his ears. The storm outside screamed. And inside the cave, a different kind of storm was about to begin. Asterisk the fire in the cave shook with the growl. The hunters had arrived. Their bodies were shadows against the storm, but their glowing eyes burned like small suns. They stepped closer, claws scratching on stone, jaws dripping with frozen saliva. The alien child curled tighter under the glowing blanket. His breath was short and sharp. His people had told him stories of these beasts, the storm wolves. They followed the wind. They fed on the weak. And they never stopped until blood touched the snow. The human stood tall. No fear, no movement wasted. The weapon in his hand hummed, a low vibration that made the air heavy. The first wolf leapt forward. The human fired. A flash of red light split the cave. The sound was not thunder, not fire, something stranger, something sharper. The wolf crashed into the ground, smoke rising from its body. The cave filled with the smell of burned fur. But the others did not retreat. They circled, snapping jaws, eyes locked on the human and the child. The child pressed his face into the blanket, trying not to cry. He was sure this was the end. Even if the human was strong, there were too many. Another wolf charged. The human dropped his weapon, too slow to reload, and caught the beast with his hands. Armor screeched as claws scraped across it. The human slammed the creature against the stone wall. The cave shook. The wolf fell limp. The child gasped. His fear shifted, just a little, into awe. But the fight was not over. 2 more wolves pounced at once. The human spun, grabbed the fire, and kicked the burning wood into their faces. They howled, blinded by flame. The human drove a knife into the first, then used the second's own momentum to slam it into the ground. The child had never seen such power. This was no ordinary man. This was something else. Yet, even with the human strength, the cave was filling with death. The last wolf crouched at the entrance, bigger than the rest. Its eyes glowed brighter, its teeth longer. It was the Alpha. The human raised his weapon again. Click. Empty. The Alpha leapt. The child screamed. At the last second, the human did something the child could not understand. He pulled a small device from his belt and slammed it onto the cave floor. A burst of white light exploded, brighter than lightning. The wolf yelped, blinded, crashing into the walls. The child's vision blurred. His ears rang. The fire died. The cave filled with smoke and shadows. Silence. When the child opened his eyes, the wolves were gone. Only the smell of blood and ash remained. The human knelt in front of him. The mask's red glow dimmed for a moment, then brightened again. He touched the child's shoulder, checking for wounds. The boy whispered, barely able to speak. What are you?" The human tilted his head, but said nothing. Instead, he picked up the child, lifted him with careful strength, and turned toward the storm outside. The boy clutched the blanket, heart still racing. He had seen power before. His people had warriors, hunters, soldiers. But this was different. As they stepped back into the blizzard, one thought burned in the boy's mind. This was no monster. This was no savior. This was something more. And if the storm wolves feared him, maybe everyone else should too. Asterisk. The hunters arrived. The storm had grown quieter by dawn. Snow still fell, but the wild, tearing winds had softened into silence. 4. The alien child. That silence was not comfort. It was warning. The human carried him down the frozen path, boots sinking deep with each step. His armor glistened with frost. He moved like a shadow of iron, never slowing, never showing pain. Child's small head rested against the blanket. His body still shook, not from cold, but from the memory of the storm wolves. He whispered once, in his own tongue, "Why are you helping me?" The human did not answer. He never did. But soon the silence broke. A sound echoed across the frozen. Cliffs low, mechanical, steady. The child knew it well. It was the sound of engines. His heart skipped. Soldiers. The human stopped, his mask turning toward the horizon. In the distance, dark shapes cut through the storm. Tall figures in armor, banners strapped to their shoulders, weapons gleaming, even in the weak sun. The child's. People. His people's soldiers. For 1 second, hope flared inside him. Maybe they would protect him. Maybe they would take him home. But then fear followed. If they saw the human, they would kill him without a word. Humans were not trusted. Humans were not welcome. The child's body tensed. What if they thought the human had kidnapped him? What if they attacked? The human seemed to understand without words. He set the boy down gently in the snow, then stepped back, weapon ready. Not pointed at the child. Pointed outward, the soldiers. Approached, boots heavy against ice. Their leader raised a hand. His voice was harsh, sharp, carried by the wind. "Step away from the child." The boy flinched. The words were clear to him, but not to the human. He looked between them, frozen in fear. The human did not move. His mask glowed red, unreadable. The leader's voice grew louder. "You dare touch him? You dare take one of ours?" The soldiers spread out, circling. Their rifles gleamed with cold light. The child's heart thundered. He wanted to speak, to explain, but his throat locked tight. The leader pointed his weapon at the human. "Release the boy, or you die here." The human tilted his head. Slowly, he raised one hand, not in attack, but in some strange gesture. His weapon remained lowered. His stance was calm, not threatening, but the soldiers did not care. They only saw the mask, the armor, the mystery. To them, he was the enemy. One soldier stepped closer. Too close. The human reacted instantly. His hand shot out, grabbed the soldier's weapon, and twisted. Metal snapped like ice. The soldier crashed into the snow. The others shouted, "Rifles!" Rising, "Stop!" The child cried, voice cracking. But it was too late. The cliff echoed with gunfire. Bright bolts tore through the storm. The human dodged, moved with inhuman speed, pulling the boy behind him. Bullets struck his armor, sparks flying, but he did not fall. The boy trembled, caught between fear and awe. He had never seen anyone move like this. The human was fast, precise, too precise, almost practiced. The leader shouted orders, voice breaking through the chaos. "Kill him. Protect the child." The human pressed the boy against the wall of ice, shielding him completely. Red light pulsed from the mask, glowing brighter. He spoke, words the child could not understand, but the tone was clear. "Stay down. Trust me." The child's eyes filled with tears. He wanted to scream that this human had saved him, that he was not the monster they believed. But the soldiers would not listen. The boy looked at the leader, then at the human. His chest ached with the weight of the choice. If he spoke the truth, they might shoot him for siding with the stranger. If he stayed silent, the human would die. The gunfire stopped. Smoke filled the air. The leader stepped forward, weapon raised to the human's head. Last chance. The child's lips trembled. His small voice rose above the storm, desperate and sharp. "He saved me." The world froze. The soldiers blinked in shock. The human lowered his weapon, standing still. The boy's cry echoed against the cliffs. The leader's hand shook on his rifle. His eyes burned into the boy's, searching for doubt, but there was none. The storm whispered again, carrying silence between them. And in that silence, one thing became clear. This was no simple rescue. This was the beginning of war. Asterisk the escape. The shot never came. The alien child's cry, "He saved me," still hung in the frozen air. The soldiers stood frozen, rifles raised, but their fingers hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes. The leader snarled, "Lies. He is using you, boy. Step away now." The boy shook his head, clutching the glowing blanket tighter. "No, he is not the enemy." His voice broke, but the words were clear. The soldiers muttered among themselves. Confusion spread like fire. And in that moment, the human acted. He scooped up the child with one arm and slammed his boot into the ice floor. A hidden charge detonated, one the soldiers had not seen him plant. The ground cracked, exploding with smoke and snow. The cave shook violently. The soldiers staggered, blinded by white haze. When the smoke cleared, the human and child were gone. The chase began. Through the storm, across jagged cliffs, the human ran with the boy in his arms. Behind them, voices shouted, engines roared. Searchlights cut through the blizzard like knives. The child held on tight, every bounce threatening to tear him free. His heart pounded louder than the wind. He could see shadows moving behind them fast, relentless. Soldiers on hover skis glided across the ice, rifles in hand. Faster. The child whispered, though he knew the human did not understand. Still, the stranger's grip tightened. The man ran like a machine, never slowing, never stumbling. But the soldiers were gaining. One dart of red light whizzed past, burning into the snow. Another struck the wall of ice, sending shards raining down. Human stopped suddenly. The boy looked up in panic. Why had he stopped? Why now? Then he saw the ground ahead was not solid. A massive canyon split the land, a black scar in the endless white. A drop so deep it swallowed the storm itself. There was no bridge. Soldiers closed in, shouting. The boy's heart froze. They were trapped. Asterisk the human looked at the boy, then at the canyon. For the first time, the child thought he saw hesitation in that glowing mask. "No," the boy whispered, shaking his head. "We can't." But the human was already moving. He sprinted forward, boots pounding the ice, the canyon rushing closer. The boy screamed as the edge came nearer. Nearer then they leapt. For one endless heartbeat, they were flying. The wind roared, the storm swallowed them whole, and below was nothing but endless dark. They landed hard, tumbling into the snow on the far side. The child gasped, clutching the blanket. They were alive, but the danger was not over. Asterisk engines roared again. The soldiers had hover skis. They could cross the canyon easily. The human didn't wait. He pulled a small device from his belt, a disc, glowing faint blue. He hurled it onto the ice behind them. The canyon shook. Cracks spiderwebbed across the frozen bridge as the device pulsed. Then, with a deafening roar, the entire edge collapsed. Soldiers screamed as the ice fell, dragging engines and men into the abyss. Silence. The storm swallowed the echoes. Only the human and child remained on the far side. Breath steaming in the frozen air, the boy's chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes were wide with terror and something else. Wonder. He looked up at the human. "Why do you risk so much for me?" He whispered. The mask tilted down. No answer. Only the steady glow of red eyes. Asterisk. But before the boy could speak again, the human pointed into the distance. Through the storm, faint lights flickered. Not soldier lights. Something different. A signal tower, old and broken, jutting out of the snow like the bones of a giant. A place to hide. The human adjusted his grip and began moving again, heading toward the tower. The boy clung to him, head against the armored chest, heart still racing. Behind them, the storm carried distant sounds more. Soldiers, more engines. They were not safe. Not yet. And as the boy closed his eyes, one thought cut deeper than the cold. If his people feared humans this much, then maybe they knew something about this stranger that he did not. Something dangerous. Asterisk, the secret revealed. Broken signal. Tower rose from the snow like the rib of a dead beast. Rust covered its steel bones, and frost clung to every wire. The storm hissed through its hollow frame, making it groan like a giant in pain. The human moved carefully, carrying the boy through the wreckage. Inside, the tower was half collapsed, but there was space enough for shelter. He set the child down gently, then swept the shadows with his glowing mask. The boy hugged his blanket, tight, eyes darting to every corner. The tower felt haunted, as if ghosts lived in the steel. The human lit a small flame again, the same controlled fire he had used in the cave. The warmth spread quickly. For the first time in days, there was no chase, no wolves, no gunfire. Only the sound of the storm outside. The boy's stomach growled. The human handed him another pack of food. He ate quickly, though his eyes never left the stranger. Finally, he spoke. His voice was quiet, trembling, but strong enough to echo in the hollow tower. Why? Why do you save me? The human froze. Slowly, he reached into his armor. His gloved hand pulled out a small object. A locket dot. It was dented, scratched, but still intact. The boy watched as the human opened it. Inside, under the faint glow of the fire, was a picture. A child. A human child. Smiling, bright-eyed, frozen forever in that small frame. The boy's breath caught. His throat tightened. He understood. The human looked at the locket for a long moment, then at the alien child. No words were spoken, but the truth was clear. Boy whispered, "You had a child." The human lowered his head. Slowly, almost painfully, he reached up and unclipped the mask. With a soft hiss, the metal slid free. For the first time, the boy saw his face. Not a monster. Not a machine. A man. His skin was pale, scarred. His eyes were tired, shadowed by years of grief. But when he looked at the boy, there was no anger, no hate, only pain. And something else. Something the boy had not seen in anyone since the storm. Began. Hope. The boy's lips trembled. Your child. They are gone. The man gave the smallest nod. The boy's eyes filled with tears. His own family had been taken by the storm. He had thought he was alone in this pain. But here, in this broken tower, he realized the human carried the same weight. He wiped his face quickly, not wanting to show weakness. So, you saved me because I remind you of them. The man didn't answer, but the way his hand tightened on the locket was enough. The boy stared at him. Confusion and fear still lived in his heart. But now there was something else. Understanding. For a moment, the storm outside faded. They were only two survivors. Two broken lives holding on to each other. But then a sound. The man snapped his mask back on instantly. His head turned toward the tower walls. The boy froze. He had heard it too. A faint hum, almost like the buzz of insects. But deeper. Mechanical. The man moved to the window. Through the storm, faint lights flickered again. But these were not searchlights. They were blue, steady, organized. Drones. Dozens of them, hovering across the horizon like a swarm of metal birds. The boy's blood turned cold. These were not his people's machines. These were something older, something forbidden. The man's stance tightened. He knew them. The boy whispered, You knew they were here. That's why you came. Not for me. For this. The man looked back at him. For the first time, the boy thought he saw guilt in those glowing eyes. The boy's chest tightened. He clutched the blanket, heart pounding. He wanted to trust the man. He wanted to believe he was only a savior. But now, a dark question burned inside him. Had he been saved or captured? Asterisk, the final stand, the swarm of drones cut through the storm. Like a living sky of metal, blue lights blinked in perfect rhythm, their hum louder than the wind. They were not wild beasts. They were machines ancient, patient, merciless. The boy's small body shook as he pressed against the tower wall. His eyes followed the endless lights stretching across the horizon. The human stood in front of him, weapon in hand, mask glowing. Red again. He did not flinch. He had expected this. The boy's voice cracked as he whispered, "You knew. You came for them." The man did not answer. His silence was confirmation. The boy's chest ached. He wanted to scream, to run, but he couldn't. His legs would not move. The drones drew closer, their hum turning into a roar. And then, from the storm behind, another sound rose. Engines. Soldiers. His people had returned, following the trail. 2 enemies. Both closing in. The boy's heart pounded. Trapped between war and war, the leader of the soldiers shouted through the storm, "Step away from the human, boy. We'll destroy him and those machines." The boy's head spun. He looked at the man, the human who had carried him through the storm, who had fought beasts, who had wrapped him in warmth when death was near. But what if it was all a lie? What if he was only a pawn in something greater? The man crouched low, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. His voice came through the mask, rough but steady. "You must choose." The boy's breath caught. Choose? The man's eyes glowed brighter through the mask. Them or me? The boy froze. The drone struck first. Bolts of blue light fired into the snow, burning holes in the ice. The soldiers opened fire back, the storm exploding with chaos. The broken tower shook under the assault, metal screaming. As it split apart, the man pulled the boy into cover, his armor taking the hits. Sparks flew across his shoulders. The leader's voice tore through the storm. "He is the reason the drones are here. He brought them." The boy's head spun. Was it true? Had this human dragged death to his people's doorstep? Another explosion shook the tower. The boy screamed. The man lifted him again, shielding him as drones swarmed through the broken roof. With one hand, he fired, red light tearing the machines apart. With the other, he held the boy close, refusing to let go. The child's mind swirled with fear, anger, and doubt. But when he looked at the man's locket, still glowing faintly, through cracked armor, he remembered. The man had saved him when the storm wanted him dead. The man had carried him, fed him, fought for him. Not once had he let go. Tears stung the boy's eyes as he screamed above the chaos. "He is not the enemy." The words tore across the battlefield, cutting through the noise. The soldiers froze. For a breath. The drones swarmed closer. The man looked at the boy, red mask glowing, and for the first time, his voice softened. "You remind me why we fight." He set the boy down, gently but firmly. Then he stood tall, weapon blazing, drawing the fire of both drones and soldiers. The boy cried out, "No, don't." But it was too late. The human charged into the storm, red light against blue, one man against an army. Explosions shook the sky, shadows swallowed the snow. The boy's small hands clutched the blanket tighter. He wanted to run to him, to help, but all he could do was watch as the storm consumed man. Silence. And then light. The drones fell, their blue eyes dying one by one, raining metal across the snow. The soldiers lowered their weapons, stunned. The storm itself seemed to stop, as if holding its breath, and in the center of it all, the man still stood. Armor broken, mask cracked, but alive. Barely. He fell to one knee, clutching the locket. The boy ran to him, tears streaming. He grabbed the man's hand, whispering through sobs, "You can't leave me. You can't." The man's cracked mask revealed one eye, tired but calm. "You are stronger than you know. Live, for both of us." The boy shook his head. "No, we live together." The man's hand tightened weakly. His gaze fell on the boy not as an alien, not as an enemy, but as a child. His child. The storm began to fade. The sun broke through, faint but real dot, and as the light touched the broken tower, the boy realized something greater than survival had been born here. Not victory, not conquest, but a bond. A human and an alien child standing together in the universe. That had wanted them apart, and in that moment, the boy knew. This was not the end. This was the beginning.